Hi, today I'm talking about the book Keep It Like a Secret by John David Anderson. I thought this book was really good and I'm really excited to tell you about it. I don't know if it looks better when I put the book I'm talking about on the bottom or top shelf. Let me know if you have a preference or you think it makes any difference. So, this is the fourth book I have read by John David Anderson. He is one of my favorite authors at the moment. And speaking of my favorite authors, I am going to make a video soon where I talk about my favorite authors and also authors I want to read more of, so you can expect to see that soon. I've also read his books Posted, One Last Shot, and Miss Bixby's Last Day. I really enjoyed all of these books. I gave each of them 5 stars. I just read Miss Bixby's Last Day last year, and that's like his most popular book, I think, and that was one of the best books I read in the year. These and Keep It Like a Secret are all contemporary books, but he has written in other genres as well. I just haven't read any of those books yet. I do like contemporary more. The idea of reading like science fiction or ghost stories a little more intimidating, but it's not like I've never read those before. I have, and I think that I have a lot of faith in him, having read his work before and really enjoyed it. So I'll get to his other books at some point. I definitely want to read every book he's written. I can't say that about a lot of authors, but with him I can. And he has over 10 books, so that's saying a lot. I think that even if I'm reading something from him that's in a different genre than what I'm used to in general and from him, I think he'll probably make it good. So at the moment he has only written middle grade, and I still read a lot of middle grade despite being past middle school age. I think that his books in particular are very good. I think they're very deep. And later in this video, I'll go more into the different things I like about his books that I've seen in all of his books so far. I think they have really good messages, and they are definitely very meaningful. So I think that even if you are not a middle schooler, these books can apply to and help. I would think anyone. So Keep It Like a Secret is his newest book. He's got a book coming out in August called Dive, and it sounds really interesting, so I'm really excited to read that. I got this last year in May, around the time it was released, but only just recently read it. I decided to read it once it was March because I know some booktubers do middle grade March, so I finally got to reading it. So this book is about 2 siblings, a 12-year-old boy named Morgan and his 18-year-old sister Claire, and there's a picture of them on the front. You can see them there laying on a trampoline together. The book is told from Morgan's perspective, and they were very close as kids. You could say maybe they're still kids, or sort of, but I mean when they were younger. They were very close. They did a lot of things together. They were very creative together, told each other everything, understood each other really well. They had a very close relationship. And I think throughout the book, through flashbacks and the way that he talks about her, you can definitely see just how deep their relationship was. I think the author did a good job at showing us how deep it was, instead of just saying, like, she's my sister and I love her and we're really close. Like, it showed a bunch of examples, and I think that was really well done. Anyway, so like I said, they were very close, but now, like I said, she's 18, so she's getting older and developing her own opinions, and she's got a lot of things in her own life going on, and she does not get along with their mother very well at all at this point. They have fought multiple times, and she would often run away and then come back. Morgan is less confrontational and doesn't like to choose sides and just waits for her to come home. So Claire has just not been getting along with their mother at all recently. Morgan is more quiet and sticks to the rules, and Claire is more free-spirited and just does whatever she wants. And their mother has some opinions about that, and so they get into fights pretty often. And the beginning of the book is the 2 of them, as Morgan listens, getting into a really bad fight. Not physical, but just stuff happens, and you can just see, based on something that she does that upsets their mother, that it kind of just, in Morgan's opinion, went too far that time, and then she leaves. And usually whenever she would leave before, she would come back and things would be kind of fine. But it takes her a little longer to come back this time, I think 5 days, and then when she does come back, she tells Morgan without telling their parents right away, like, hey, just come with me and we're gonna go somewhere. She doesn't exactly tell them what they're gonna do. She's like, just trust me, we're gonna go on an adventure, which is very in character for her. So they do that. And this book takes place pretty much over just that whole day where they go on an adventure together, and like I said, they used to be very close, and then more recently, between her running away so often and having her own life, they haven't spent a lot of quality time together, especially as she is getting older. So this is an opportunity for them to really hang out together and bond, and Morgan, of course, hopes to restore that relationship that they had before. They also have nicknames for each other. He calls her Cat and she calls him Mouse, so usually they call each other that. Unless maybe if it's really serious. While this book pretty much takes place over the course of one day, there are a lot of flashbacks, and those can be useful in helping you learn more about the family, and especially Morgan and Claire's bond. And sometimes you will see parallels between the flashbacks when they are placed with whatever is currently going on in the story. Kind of similar to his book One Last Shot, In one last shot, the main character is at a mini golf tournament. So each chapter is like one hole in the tournament, and then it does a flashback. Now, the flashbacks are actually the main story, but this had a specific pattern that it followed where it would be like one thing in the present and then the flashback. And Keep It Like a Secret, I don't think it went as in order or as much following a specific pattern. Like, I think you could have a few regular chapters and then a flashback, so it was a little different, but I didn't mind that. I think the flashbacks were just placed whenever they were placed, and a lot of them are kind of mysterious. They involve something that sounds pretty similar to what Morgan and Claire are doing now, where they are going on an adventure where she basically doesn't really tell him what they're doing, and she's like, hey, just come with me, just trust me. That was a few years ago, so they had done something like this before, but you only get a little bit of it at a time. Those flashbacks are pretty short, like 2 or 3 pages, so you can be curious about that and not really know what exactly was going on there, but you'll learn more about it as you go and see how that ties in with what they are doing in the present. And I mentioned how you can see Morgan and Claire on the cover, and I thought the cover was really interesting, especially the more I read, because there are a bunch of photos and some objects on this cover, and as you read, you will understand the significance of them and how each of them ties in with either something that they did in that day or just something relating to their story. And I thought that was really interesting as we went, being like, okay, so that's what that place is, or that's what this means. So going into this, before reading it, I knew the basic premise that it involved a brother and a sister. Now, I do not have any siblings, so I went into this thinking that maybe I would not be able to relate to it as much as, for example, Miss Bixby's Last Day, which is about kids and their teacher. I could relate to having a teacher, yes. But I thought maybe I wouldn't be able to relate as much to this story, but I still had faith in it because I have enjoyed a lot by this author before. Plus, something I like about reading is I get to read from different perspectives that I otherwise would never know what they're like. So through this, I got to learn about what it could be like to have a sibling, and I really enjoyed that because I've never experienced that, and I'm sure it's different for everyone, but it helped me to understand a little better, so I liked getting that perspective. And not being able to relate wasn't really a problem for me. I was never like, oh, I can't relate to this, so I don't really care about what you're going through. Like, no, I definitely was invested in what was happening, and I did think that it was quite emotional at times. I read this book pretty quickly, and that doesn't always happen with me with reading, but I just thought that it was really fun, and I was enjoying it, and I was, like I said, invested and excited to see how it would end because I wasn't really exactly sure. Also, the chapters were generally pretty short, so it was really easy to just read a little bit at once or a lot at once. It was one of those books where, and I don't always get this feeling, but one where I'm just really excited to read a little bit each day, or a lot each day, which kind of was the case with this one, where maybe I'm waiting for something and I'm like, I'll just read some of this book. Some books I may not be as invested in, so I'm like, no, I'm not going to read some of it right now. But this book was one of those. It was definitely one that was just really fun and exciting to read. Not all books make me feel that way. So I'm going to talk about some more things I liked about it. There are so many things that I love about John David Anderson's books, and some of them, which are also featured in this book, are, for one, his books, at least the realistic fiction ones, I haven't read the speculative fiction ones yet, they go over real situations that a lot of people, kids especially, who are his target audience, but even non-kids I think could relate to this and find it useful. Some kids may be going through situations like these. There are probably some kids who are in a very similar situation to Morgan, or maybe some people who are in a very similar situation to Claire, and maybe they can find her more relatable. After all, as the story goes, you find out more about why she behaves the way she does, and why she has made certain decisions in her life recently, where you otherwise may have been like, why would you do that? Especially in the beginning, like I said, there was that really big fight, and even I was kind of like, oh, that was too far. But then the more I read, I was like, I kind of understand why you did that. His books are just realistic. Like, yeah, not every child is from a perfect, functional home, and this book does contain a rather dysfunctional family. Like I said, there's no physical abuse in it, but just, like I said, it's dysfunctional. And so I think that there could be kids, or even older people, who read these books and find them relatable, and they may feel heard and seen. And another thing about that is maybe then, through reading the protagonist's thoughts, they might be able to understand how they're feeling, especially if they're younger and may not know how to put their feelings into words, although a lot of times older people can struggle with that too. I think that this book, and this author in general, does a great job at expressing certain thoughts and emotions and describing certain experiences and how they make you feel and how they affect you, and that can be really good. Maybe someone can be going through a similar situation and they can read this, and maybe they weren't sure how to describe how they felt. Maybe they weren't even sure how they felt. But then they read something like this, and that helps them understand, and that helps them process it, and maybe that helps them know how to put it into words. His books are also educational in a fun way. Like, there will just be some random facts in it, but they're part of the story and related to whatever's going on. So I think that they're really cleverly placed in there. Like I said, his books can be very emotional, so I think that they are very, I don't know if philosophical is the word. That's the word I've been using. I'm not sure if that's the right way to describe it. They're not like super boring just thinking all the time. Like, they have a lot to it. Things absolutely happen in this book. I think that there are a lot of deep thoughts, and I like that. I also think that it had some funny moments, and some of the way the narration was written was funny. I really enjoyed the way that this was written. There are also, I don't know if this applies to all of his books, but I think they have in all the ones I've read so far. I don't remember in Posted because I read that nearly 5 years ago at this point, but there are also some pop culture references, and so that can perhaps help kids understand, like maybe references to certain games or movies or TV shows. Well, not even just references, but them being like actually mentioned, and that can be something that kids or even people who are a little older like me help them relate to it, and helps them feel like a connection to them, to remind them that these characters are, well, they don't exist in real life, but you know what I mean, they're real people. So I think that makes it a little more relatable. So yeah, there are just so many things that I like about his books that shone through in this book, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's interesting how you can have a book on your shelf for a while and not read it, and before you read it, you may know a little bit of what it's about, like I did, but you ultimately don't know the full story. You know, you haven't read it, and then now after you've read it, you do know what it's about. It's just cool, because it's like, okay, now I know what this is about. Now I know the full story. Also, despite not getting Claire or any other character's perspective, there is another interesting thing about this book that I wanted to mention. In the synopsis, after it describes how they're going to go on this like adventure together, it says, "But Claire has her own plan for the day. One that will mean that no matter what happens, things between them are going to change forever." We don't know at the beginning what Claire's plan is, or even why she's taking him on this adventure in the first place, but that is another thing that can keep you invested, because she has an idea, and it may be the same as Morgan's idea, it may not be, and of course he is curious throughout about what it is. She's got like a box she tells him to retrieve, and he doesn't really know what it's about. She doesn't tell him what it's about at first. So yeah, he doesn't really know what's going on. So it wasn't exactly a mystery, but there was a mystery aspect to it. There are also some quotes in this book that I wanted to share. On page 116, "You can't spend your whole life being the person everyone else wants you to be. It's exhausting. It's like running a race where you never get to cross the finish line." Now, I won't say how, but I will say that that does tie in with something in the book. Basically what that is comparing it to. And then the other one on page 158. Now, this is pretty similar to something that I read from in my review of Just Listen by Sarah Dessen, which was one of my most recent videos. "You can't just wait for the perfect moment to roll around, because here's a secret. There is no perfect moment. You said it yourself. We make our own choices. Sometimes you just gotta take the plunge." So I thought this book was really good. One of the best books I've read this year so far. Not the absolute best, but it's up there, and I will make a video at the end of the year talking about the best books that I read. I don't know if this will still be in it once I've read some more books this year. I do think it has the potential to not make it. Depends. I don't know how long the list is going to be. Is it John David Anderson's best book? In my opinion, no. I think that Miss Bixby's Last Day is still my favorite, and like I said, I think that's his most popular. I don't know if anything's going to beat that, because that one was really good. This one was still pretty good, though. I wouldn't say it was his best, but that is okay. I absolutely gave it 5 stars. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about how I do star ratings. I know that some people will only give a book 5 stars like very rarely if they thought that it was just absolutely amazing, and so it's not very common that they give a book 5 stars. For me, I'll give a book 5 stars pretty often, but not all the time. Some people are very giving with giving a book 5 stars. They'll be like, if it made me laugh or cry or anything at all, it gets 5 stars. You're like, that's great. I'm sure the authors appreciate that. I wouldn't say I'm a super harsh critic of books, but I still, like I said, I'm not going to give every book 5 stars, but it also doesn't take too much to impress me, or am I too strict with it? Maybe that'll change over time. So I absolutely gave this book 5 stars. Now, another thing is I do not give half or partial ratings. I know some people do that. I think the main reason why I don't do that is just because you can't do that on Goodreads. I guess I just want it to be more of whole, full stars. And there are times when maybe a book is more of a 4.5, and then I may round that to 5 stars or give it 4 stars. Maybe from now on, if I feel that that is my rating outside of Goodreads, because I realized just because I can't give it that on Goodreads doesn't mean I can't say that in my review videos. So I was like, okay, I could say it in a review if I want. Not that that applies to this book. The next book I'm going to do a review of, Yeah, sort of. This book definitely was 5 stars. I wouldn't give it 4.5. Like, maybe like a 4.75, but that's not official or confirmed. That's just a maybe. I'm not really giving this a partial rating. I'm just saying at the moment I don't really give books partial ratings, but I guess if I feel that a book was more 4.5, I will say that. I think I said that about The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I said it was more of a 4.5, but I ultimately rounded that to 5. A lot of people do that, and I understand that. I think that that can be good for really giving your more specific idea of how much you enjoyed the book, because 4 stars sounds a lot lower than 4.75 or 4.5. So yeah, just wanted to mention that. I'm really excited for his new book, Dive, that comes out in August. And I think that that is all that I have to say about Keep It Like a Secret. It was a really enjoyable reading experience, very fun, had all the things in his books that I have loved before, but this book offered me a new perspective, and I still want to read all of his books. So I don't know what the next one I will read will be. I mean, there are just so many books I want to read, so it may just not be until the new one is released, but when that one's released, maybe I'll read it shortly after getting it, instead of like this one. I'm not going to wait till March, probably. Just saying, I'm not strict about only reading middle grade in March, because I read it a lot. I say that, but yeah, I don't think I have a lot of middle grade book reviews on my channel. But there are a lot of middle grade books that I'm interested in and that I have read. Still, I personally really enjoyed this, and I'm very excited to read more of his books. We will see when that will be. If it's not Dive that I read next, I'm not sure which one I will read next. Maybe I'll go for it, read one of those science fiction ones, or maybe just stay in my comfort zone with contemporary. We'll see. Anyway, thank you for watching.